Now, before I complete my JavaScript code, I would like to go inside my body tag in my HTML and create some HTML5 elements and some containers for the data that is going to be displayed. So I delete this hello world and start with a div element that is going to contain our title, which is fun facts, and another div element that is going to contain our not an a element or the div element, another div element that is going to contain the rest of the page elements. Inside this div element, I would like to have let's go back to our target HTML page, which is this. This is the title bar, which is the first div element, and then we have the rest of the page, which is another div element. Inside it, we're going to have another div element that has the number of the people, and then another div element underneath it which contains the explanation, people visited this area, and then another div element that contains a table of the places. So I go back to the editor and create 3 div elements inside this div element. To keep track of them, I can give them an ID. We can also use it later to style our HTML elements. I call it main panel or main, that's enough. And the first one, I call it title. Inside this, I create 3 div elements. The first one I call counter. The second one I call explanation. EXP is enough. And third one I call places, which is going to contain a table of the places. Now let's go back to our HTML page and see it has printed fun facts in the first div element. Obviously it doesn't look like our target HTML5 because we haven't added any styling to our HTML page yet. We will do it later. So here in the success function of our AJAX call, instead of printing the number of people in the console, let's print it inside the counter div element. So I comment out this line and I type document.get element by ID counter, which returns this div element, the first div element in our main div element, and I set its inner HTML to the number of people. So document.get element by ID counter dot inner HTML equals object dot people. Let's try our page again. Number 4 shows up here underneath the title, which shows the number of people. So it works. Now that we have the number of people, let's add the explanation in the div underneath it. People visited this area. And now it's time to display the places from our JSON object. In order to display the places, we need to create a table inside the places div element and assign each row to one of the places in our JSON object. So to create this table dynamically, I'm going to write a function called showPlaces, which will get a list of places and create a table. So the first thing I'll do is to create a document element, a table element, which I call table. And I create it using document.createElement. And I give it the table tag. So I create a table element. Then I will assign an ID to this table so that I can later use it for styling the table. Table that set attribute ID, and I call it places table. Next, I'm going to put some HTML tags inside this table element along with the places attributes that we got from the JSON object. So, imagining that we have a list of the places, I'm going to create a for loop that loops the places list and for each of the places in that list it is going to add a row to this table element. So we have table that inner HTML plus equals no, because we're going to add a row for each place to the inner HTML of this table. So we create a row in a table cell and inside this table cell let's put the place name. So places the index I of the places dot name. And now, after we make the AJAX call in the showPosition function and get the data back and transform it into a JSON object, here we call this showPlaces function and pass to it the places array in our JSON object. Object.places. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot something. Here inside the show places, we just created the table, but we haven't yet added it to the document of our page. So we append it to the div that is supposed to contain our table using the div ID. So we say document.getElement by ID places dot append child, and our child is the table. So now the table is supposed to show up in that div element. Let's go to our page and refresh it. 4 people visited this area, and here is our table, the list of the places. Now before we go back and change our HTML5 code, let's take another look at our target HTML5 page. We have a table of the places here with the name of the place, the distance, and the address underneath it. So let's go into our editor and print out other attributes of the place, like the address and the distance, inside this table. So I am going to add a div element inside the table cell that wraps around the place name, and then I am going, I'm sorry, let's change them to span elements, because I am going to change the float variables and put them on the right and left side of the table cell. And then I'm going to add another span element next to it, which is going to contain the distance. And inside this span element, I'm going to add the places I dot dist, the dist attribute, which is the distance between the current location and the target location. And save it. And now let's add a div element that wraps around these 2 span elements, and add another div element underneath it that contains the address. Inside this second div element, I am going to add the address attribute of the place. So places I dot address. So let me go back into the console and check if the attribute is called address. Go into the network tab and into the response, and then scroll down and see, yeah, it is called address. So I use the same thing here. Save it. Now let's go back to our browser and reload the page. And here it is, the list of places with their names, their distance, and the address underneath it. Now we have most of the data that we need to display in our HTML5 page. So the rest of the thing we want to do is to style this page so that it looks beautiful and readable.